So is it better to build a home or buy an existing home that's ready to move in? And this is a common question that comes up many times in many people's minds, especially if they're thinking to move. And many times people think that building a house from scratch is a lot cheaper than buying an existing one. But in reality, constructing your own home is almost always more expensive than buying an existing home of similar size, and a lot of the time it's much more expensive, especially if it's a custom home, guys. And that's why I'm doing this video. Plus there's other key factors that you want to consider as well. But both options have their pros and cons, and there are options in new construction that could potentially work for you. So you need to know all of them before you come up to make your decision. So if this is your first time seeing me, I'm Pinkas, your real estate expert, and I'm here to help you avoid those pitfalls that are costly. So give me a thumbs up if you're good with that. But you got to understand the current housing market. Before we jump in, just understanding your current situation and the housing market where you live is super important. Number one, rising construction costs. Now, if you didn't already know this, there's a thing called inflation. And in the US, probably in most countries, one of the most significant challenges is homeowners are facing right now is building a house with these rising construction costs because the cost of land and building materials and labor has gone up. Inflation and other supply chain disruptions have totally increased the price of materials from lumber to appliances, and even the labor has gone up. Now this is going to make a big difference when you compare the prices of existing homes because construction cost, it wasn't this high 20 or 30 years back. And second, the housing inventory is still low in many states. Now this supply of fewer available homes has created a competitive market for buyers who are looking for move-in ready houses. And you'll end up in a bidding war for good properties that are priced well. And this drives the home prices beyond their initial listing value. So which one really is better? Well, you have to decide based on the current situation on where you live. Now here's some advantages that you're going to get when you're building a house from scratch in 2024. Number one, no hidden problems. Like pre-owned properties, sometimes they got some issues. And if you build from the ground up, and you're watching it as the construction process happens, you're likely to see any hidden issues with that house. Now, because you have a complete control over those materials and building cost methods, you can actually watch and then ensure that the overall house is being built with a good quality. Now, the common problems that buyers face when buying existing homes is there's hidden issues in that house, and an inspection doesn't disclose everything. And the sellers don't always disclose everything either. Now, this could be anything from structural damage to faulty wiring and even outdated plumbing and other issues that will surface only when you're living in that house after the sale. So even though sellers are legally obligated to disclose these different issues, it's not always possible to uncover every single item during a home inspection. Because the seller, what do they want to do? They want to sell it and they want to maximize their investment. And a lot of times they'll intentionally keep some of these flaws hidden. So a real estate expert can point some of these things out to you if you don't do this every single day. But just realize that some home sellers, they just don't care about what the next homeowner is going to get. They just want to sell their house fast. So let's stick a temporary solution or a patch on the house just to get it sold. But such flaws such as outdated plumbing or cracks in the foundation, this can be a huge chunk of money, guys, if you don't get it fixed on time. And this is a problem that you won't get when you're building a house yourself because you can actually see that. You're going to get a peace of mind that this property is free from such potential burdens. Number two, appreciation from potential newer homes. In many areas, a newly built home, it'll appreciate in value faster than some existing homes. Now, it's all related to where you live. Even one side of town can be higher than another. If you do your due diligence, if you do your work, you're going to find the best options for you. And again, a real estate expert can really help you with this. But firstly, I just want to let you know that new homes are often built with the latest construction techniques. They are more energy efficient, and this makes them more desirable to some buyers. And secondly, as neighborhoods develop, the infrastructure improves over time. So the value newer homes get with that benefit of increased desirability. Just remember location, 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 because sometimes that location can make all the difference. You can have a house that's very similar in one neighborhood and another, and it's a totally different price point. So depending on location, new homes can typically come with a warranty, and this also will offer a peace of mind to a buyer and potentially attract a wider pool of potential purchasers. But you also have to consider the rate of appreciation, because this can significantly vary depending upon the location and your market conditions and other economic factors. So it's crucial to do your market research and your due diligence, and I'm not talking about a Google search, guys. It's the inside information that you need to know before you make your decision. Number three, the ability to customize. Now, because you're free and you can design your own house if you're building a custom house to whatever you want, this can be a plus and a minus. Everything from the floor plan to the finishing, you have complete control over creating that space and a perfect lifestyle for your tastes. Although some pre-owned homes, you can renovate and you can change certain things in the house, If it has the location, you can change those things out because location, location, location. But you're still limited to the existing structure and the layout of the house. So this could add up to some costs as well. Now there are some disadvantages to building a new house, which is going to outweigh the pros for a lot of you guys. Number one, higher initial costs. Now building a new home, it typically requires a way higher upfront investment compared to purchasing an existing property. This could be a lot of factors, and that includes, like, if you're building it from scratch, you got to buy the land, and then you have permits and fees and other things. Now if you're building a tract built home with a national builder, some of those are going to offer features and benefits, and it may be better for you. But if you're building a custom home, this construction can be costly, and labor and other expenses that are associated with this can add up really quickly. And the overall initial investment can be more than buying a similar existing home. Additionally, if you're likely to secure financing for both the land and the construction process, this can be a lot more complex than obtaining just a simple traditional mortgage. But building a house would require a larger down payment compared to purchasing an existing property. And like I mentioned before, pros of the long-term value and the potential for appreciation can offset these expenses over time, so you really need to do your research. Number two, longer timeline. Now, it does take some time to build, obviously, because building will take time and the construction project can have starts and stops, and it may take several months or even years if it's really a big house. This is a lengthy process. You may not have the patience for this, and you've got a lot of things that are moving all in this house, especially if you're building this house from scratch. Plus, there's always the risk of unexpected cost overruns, which usually happens. Guys, if you're building a custom home, whatever they quote you, just add on to that 20 or 25% because that's really what you're going to end up paying. Because if the construction is delayed for some reason, or you decide to make some changes while you're going through the process, this is really going to affect the project duration, and eventually it's going to add up a lot to the costs. Now, additionally, the overall cost is going to increase as time passes, and this is due to inflation, as I mentioned before. So you really have to keep that in mind too. I've seen projects that start out at one price and they end up being a totally another by the time they're done. So these are some of the key reasons why building a house turns out to be more expensive than buying an existing property. When you buy a property that's already owned, there are advantages that are totally different. So consider this. Number one, you can move in. It's a lot faster, right? But one of the primary advantages to buying an existing house is that you can move in relatively quickly compared to building a brand new one from scratch. Now, once you've found a suitable property and the house is ready to move in, you can typically do that within a matter of weeks or months, depending upon your closing timelines and logistics of the finalizing that deal. Number two, an established neighborhood. Now, if there's houses around that house, and people are already living there, that means the neighborhood's already established. And this can be appealing, especially if you're looking for a strong sense of community. You're not going to have all the construction material, trucks coming and going. The overall atmosphere is typically good in such neighborhoods. Meanwhile, new construction communities can take years to get totally built out, so you got to consider this. And number three, there's space for negotiation. Another advantage to purchasing an existing home is the ability to negotiate with that seller. Now, depending again on the market conditions, sellers may be open to negotiating on the price terms and the closing costs. In the meantime, building a new home typically means you got a fixed contract with a limited amount of room for negotiation. That is, unless it's a tract-built home with national builders. My team knows the ins and outs. We know which ones are giving incentives. We know which ones to look for, what to stay away from, which crews are building quality homes, even if it's a name brand, and which ones are not increasing, and then areas that are just kind of okay. So again, your local real estate expert really is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this. But back to existing property, the flexibility in terms for reaching an agreement, sometimes it can help both the buyer and the seller. Now, based on what we've discussed so far, the best choice is the one that works best for you. You got to weigh the pros and the cons, because would you spend more on building a brand new house from scratch in an undeveloped community, or are you fine with adopting an existing house and design and then saving some money? Or are you going with one of those new home communities, and there's a lot of options out there, it's not like one or two, and you want to know which is average and you want to know what's way above average. And I'm Jerry with Jerry Pinkas Real Estate Experts. My real estate team is here to help you find your hidden gem and to avoid those pitfalls that are costly. This is what we do it every day, and we're good at it. So if you're thinking of buying a house in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, or anywhere in the United States, give us a call at 843-839-9870 because I can hook you up with a real estate expert in your neighborhood. My team has helped over 2,000 people successfully move in the last 20 years, and we've seen just about everything from the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I want to make sure you're getting a hidden gem and you're finding your best options. Now, if you watch this video until the end, just make sure you share it with somebody you know who can use it. And until next time, stay happy, stay educated, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care, guys.